Okay, so thank you all so much for joining us at the JobTread Live Product Update today. JobTread founder and CEO Eric Fortenberry will be sharing exciting product updates, partner highlights, and some upcoming development priorities. I think we have maybe one new partner that we're going to be highlighting today. So this webinar will be recorded and shared on the JobTread Pros Facebook group and in the JobTread Help Desk. Please utilize the Q&A tool if you have any questions during the webinar. Our team's going to answer them as we go, or like I said, Eric may answer them at the end. So thank you all so much for joining, and Eric, go ahead and take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Anna. Welcome, everybody. Excited to have you here today. We've got some really exciting updates that we've been working really hard to put out there for you. So I'm sure a lot of you guys have already gotten your hands on it. I've already seen some of the videos and stuff, but we just wanted to kind of walk through them again here with everyone and be able to have that discussion. So we'll just kind of dive into it. Before we get going, though, for all of our customers out there, if you're not part of our JobTread Pros Facebook group, highly recommend it. It's a great place to be able to engage with all of our customers as well as with all of our employees. So yeah, it's a really awesome place. You guys have been doing a great job helping each other out, coming up with ideas, brainstorming good solutions to things that come up. And so just really appreciate everyone's involvement there and want to encourage everyone who's not in there yet to go join. And yeah, we'll get you part of it. A couple updates on the customer success front. As I've told you guys, and as you know, our goal here is to help maximize your success with JobTread. And we're continually providing more resources and making, additional, people and personnel available to help you at all times. And so, if you hadn't been jumping on Anna's live trainings, she does 2 to 3 live trainings every single day. The feedback we've got is phenomenal. She's developed a whole curriculum, around helping you go from zero to hero within JobTread. So, directly in the help desk, definitely check those out. You can register for them right there. We also have all of those trainings recorded. So, if you can't make any of the times, where you can get that live Q&A, you can essentially just watch the recorded trainings. Again, highly recommend you take the time to go through those. They're very helpful. There's a whole video library as well. We do these webinars. One of the other exciting updates that I mentioned last town hall was the customer success office hours. So we've now rolled that out right in the help desk. You can essentially schedule a time to hop in with your customer success manager. Yeah, great resource. We've got all the on-demand support as well. So again, you can use the contact us in the app. Email support. It's a good way to get additional help when you need. And then we're also looking at putting together some training workshops. Where they may be like all day. If you want to take a deep dive and devote your day to getting up to speed as quick as possible with JobTread, we're looking at creating those here, in the near future. May do some virtual ones as well as some on-site ones once we get moved into our new office. So be on the lookout for that. Also excited to announce that we've got 2 additional team members joining our team on Monday. So Bobby Longren and Chris Phillips are going to be joining the team. We've got Bobby coming in as a customer success manager. He's got a tremendous amount of construction experience, is going to be a great asset. And we've got Chris Phillips, who's got a lot of experience with customer support and building out support teams. So excited to have these 2 guys joining us. Obviously, Dan has been with us now for, a couple months. He's very quickly gotten up to speed, and I'm sure the rest of the crew here, but we're continuing to build out our team to make sure that we're providing you guys all of the resources and all of the success, coaching that you may need to be successful at JobTread. So be on the lookout for these new faces going to be joining us here shortly. So we're really excited to have them. And I hit on the office hours earlier again. So these are group open office hours. You can basically come and go as you want, anytime between those, you'll see the 1 hour time blocks. Every customer success manager has a dedicated 1 hour per day that they make themselves available. They usually do kind of the same, either a morning session on, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then an afternoon on Tuesday, Thursday, or vice versa. We try to stagger these as best we can to, make sure that you've got, kind of some flexible options there. But these are available every single day. If for whatever reason they need to cancel one, you'll see that in the app that it'll just kind of drop off. But this will be a great place. You just click on that Meet with Me right there. For whatever reason the times don't work for you, essentially all day we do have customer success managers that are available in office hours. So if you needed to hop into someone else's, you can just let us know. Send an email to support. and we can essentially make those available to you as well. But we're here to help. We want to make sure that we're a resource, and so this has been a great way for us to essentially provide more of that access to our team, without having to have you schedule individual meetings, because that's obviously, as we scale, going to become more challenging to get times booked out. But these have been a great resource already, and we've seen a lot of success from them. So, if you got questions, want to get quick answers, have a quick discussion, these are the great place to go for it. All right, so let's hop into the product updates. I've got a lot to share. We're going to kind of start off with some other things, some smaller updates, things that we've made, since the last town hall, and then we're going to dive into the improved document creation, editing flows there, as well as the enhanced selections and allowances. So, first and foremost, custom job names. This was a long-standing request that we had from a lot of you guys. So, really excited that we're able to finally deliver that. When you create a document, or when you create a job now, you're going to see what that next number is, but you're able to come in here and you can essentially change the name of that document to whatever you want. You can use both letters and numbers. It's essentially lets you to describe those jobs. So it'll be easier for you to know what's going on, easier for the customer to understand. You don't have to use those job numbers anymore. Once a document has been created for the job, the job number will be locked in place though. So you won't be able to change it after that. So when you're creating the job, or before you send that first document, you want to make sure to get that updated. We also no longer require the job description when you're creating a job. So, again, if you don't want to use that field, you don't have to anymore. Before it was required, so now it's not. And everywhere that we showed the job number, if you've replaced it, or updated the name of it, you're now going to see that name. And we're now including all of those, in the email notifications. So, again, it's just going to be easier. You got more context to understand, what's going on. And with the email update, I just wanted to highlight. So we now do include the document subject within the email subject there. So you can see on this example here, you've got the organization name, the document and the number there, and then you've got kind of that subject. If you added a subject or described what it may be, so with all these selection updates, things like that, if you name that document, appliance selections, and then they're going to see that directly in the subject of the email as well as in the body. And also in the email body, we're now including the job name, that document subject, and the location address. So, again, a lot of requests to include additional context and details to help you all, better understand what that document is about without having to click to open up each one. So, that's now all been updated and is included in those emails. All right, moving on. So we now have given you the ability to, essentially hide any features that you're not using. So, basically, if you all aren't using, the daily logs, or if you don't want to use the selections and allowances update that we've got here, you can hide that new selections tab. If you're not using task or scheduling for whatever reason, or even the time clock, the time entries, you now have the ability to essentially just hide those from the user interface. And the neat thing too is on mobile, that'll essentially, allow you to see kind of those other, tabs and those other, places to get access to other parts of the site right there on the bottom. Because, based on the size of your screen, you only get so many. And so if there are features that you're not using, or you're just not ready to use, you can now go into the settings and you can disable those. So it's a pretty neat way to just sort of simplify JobTread. If you're not ready to launch some of these features or want to hide it, you can absolutely do that now. So just a little update there. It doesn't actually turn anything off or do anything other than it just kind of hides it throughout the user interface. All right, let's dive into the documents update. Again, this is something that we've been working really hard at. We got a lot of feedback from you all about ways that we could, essentially try to streamline this a little bit more. And so, one of the biggest things that we've done is that we've taken all of those settings that used to be in that side panel that you'd have to go and open up every time to see them. We've now brought them directly into that document screen so that you can see them right there on the screen. You're able to directly adjust the visibility of the documents, like whether you want to show the groups or show the totals or show or hide the quantities, the units, like all of those selections, those visibility options are now available right here in the document. So, just get you, a little bit easier to kind of make any of those fine-tune adjustments there that you want. You can also now directly add cost items and cost groups to customer orders without having it already in your budget. So I'll show you that here in a little bit. But again, we've heard a lot of times that you might not always want everything in the budget. Or, for example, maybe when you have selections, when you had to add it to the budget, that meant that you had to add all of the options that ultimately might not get selected. And so now if you add them directly to these customer order documents, only the approved items, only the items that get selected are going to be pushed into your job budget. So again, maybe all of those different, options and nuances and things that you don't necessarily need to show up if they're not selected, they don't have to be added to your budget ahead of time. So it's a nice little upgrade there. We've also now got the new write-in feature on cost items. So, if you want to have, your customers, paint colors is a great example. If you want them to basically write in, some selection options, they can now do that. And you also have the option to allow them to customize the quantities. So maybe if you've got, some special Z-Wave light switches that, you need to know how many they want you to install, they can now update the quantities. Or, if they wanted to tell you the colors or the models or things that they want, they can now directly write that information in. And you also have the option to allow a write-in to remain TBD from a cost perspective. So, if you're giving them the option to go find, whatever, fixture or kind of selection that they want, they can submit that to you. And then once they've submitted the document, it's going to notify you. And then that gives you the opportunity to go flush out what will the additional cost for that be. And then you can populate that, send it back to them for a final approval. But if they're just updating, paint colors or things like that, there's no incremental cost, there's no change, and you can essentially just have those with a zero cost and just let them do their write-ins, and that will take it straight to approved. So that's a nice little enhancement there that I know a lot of people have been wanting. We've also streamlined the action buttons here at the top. So before they were listed out, one by one, it was taking up a bunch of space, a bunch of really valuable real estate. So you can see we've essentially condensed all of those into one row right there below the document status. So, and then if there's ever any additional options that aren't showing up based on your screen size, they will kind of just collapse, and you'll have a little 3 dots where additional actions will show up right there in those menus. But we think that this is a little bit more of a streamlined flow here. You've got all the same actions as well as a couple new ones. We've also made the document recipient statuses more intuitive and more descriptive. So, when you add recipients to a document, you don't necessarily have to give them access right away. You might be just kind of setting the document up, setting their signature required or not required, but you don't want that to actually notify them or give them access until you send it. Well, before you couldn't necessarily tell what status they were in or what they, where they're at, or now you have the option to also remove their access. And so we've updated, the description. So it'll either say, no access, or it'll tell you that, it's been sent, or, whatever it may be. You've got some more descriptive statements right there on the document under the recipients tab. So I'll show you that here in just a second as well. And another really neat update is you now have the ability to make changes to approved customer and vendor orders as well as bid requests. So, we heard it a lot. Sometimes, when you get bid requests in, they might not have populated all of the prices, and they just, attach their output, and you need to go in there and update that. Well, now you have the option to essentially hit make changes. Same thing for a customer order or vendor order. If you don't want to have to, decline it and then clone and recreate and send it off, you now have that option to make changes to those approved document types. That's essentially going to clear out the signature if you required signatures, and it's going to move that document back to draft status. So that'll be very helpful, whenever you do need to go and make changes, or if the customer changes their mind and you just want to quickly update, kind of update the approved price, then you can now do that. So really helpful there as well. You can also see here, like these visibility options, again, move those out of that side panel. They're right there. So if you want to quickly say, I want to view everything, or just the top level, or maybe I don't want to view any line items, you now have that option to set that right there. Also things like the bill number, some of the different, QuickBooks options, whether to push in, the bills and the invoices to QuickBooks or not, all of those settings are now all going to be right here on the right side in this options panel. So, a little bit more streamlined there. Hopefully you guys find that easier to find everything you need, and all those options are right there. All right. So based on customer feedback, we have changed the word deny to decline. And so, or if you see it denied, it's now declined. This, we agree is a little bit more friendly. It's a more polite way to deny something. We also removed the red decline, red deny, like that. That was a little bit of a, emotional, psychological feeling that it caused, that, wasn't the experience, that we wanted the homeowner to feel. And I actually felt this firsthand. Like I'm working with Ringer, who is a local, low voltage AV company here. They use JobTread. They're about to come out and do all of our data and cabling needs at our new office. And he had to make some changes. And this is before the make changes option, but he went and he denied it. And I got the emails like, oh, wait, why'd you deny that? Like that wasn't, that wasn't the intended experience there. So, hopefully the new declined, it's a little bit kind of a softer touch. We've also now given the customer the option to decline those customer orders, whether it be the original proposal, a change order, if they just don't want to make those selections, because you couldn't make changes, before that was really the primary reason that we didn't allow them to decline documents, because then it would require you to clone it and create a new one. If they're just declining to make some changes, and it's going to prompt them for a reason why they're declining, you'll now just be able to go to that decline document, hit make changes, make any of the changes and resend it. And you don't have to change, the document numbers. You don't have to recreate it. So now we hope that will help you, sort of get a better, understanding of where your prospects are at in regards to, accepting your proposals, or, if they're not going to go with you, now they have that ability to decline it. And that will also be a trigger for you. Then, probably want to reach out immediately, figure out, why they chose not to, and see if you can win that business. But, we did add that as an option now for these documents. And lastly, with the decline options, we now are going to give you the ability to come in here and you can remove those users' document access directly in this flow here. So beforehand, whenever you didn't want the homeowner to be notified about, declining a document, or if you needed to make changes or something like that, and you didn't want them to continue to have access, you had to know to go and remove their access before you change the status of the documents. Well, obviously that's not, a very streamlined flow. It's also not as intuitive. And so we've now directly added the option to remove the user's access right here while you're declining the document. I believe you can also do it when you're taking it to make changes as well. And then also you also have the option to send the email notification or not. So even if you want to allow them to, maintain access to the document, you can just untoggle that send email and that won't notify them anymore. So again, you can cut down on all those notifications if you need to go make a bunch of changes and do things, and you don't want them, to necessarily, get bombarded with all those notifications. You can just directly turn off those notifications while you're making the update. A lot more streamlined process there. You can also here, if you were to add a message as to why you're declining it, that, could then be sent in the email, or it doesn't have to be, up to you. And lastly, this morning we saw some discussion on the Facebook Pros group, about all of those, whenever you do go make changes, it was showing a lot of different, activities to the homeowners on the customer portal. So we did go ahead, we've removed and hidden all of those activities. So they're not going to now see when you've created the documents, when you've made a bunch of changes. So all of that is now hidden. They're just going to see those conversations and the back and forth that, that you're having through those comments there. So hopefully that makes some of you guys happy. I know we've heard that a lot. We're going to continue to work on streamlining all of those, different notifications and activities that show up in the, within JobTread as well as on the portal. But we just wanted to make this quick change. More coming in that regard. All right. So now let's talk about the selections and allowances update, and then I'll hop into a live demo here. So again, you now have a dedicated selections tab right on the job. So you can see it right here. This is the new selections tab. This is essentially going to be one place where you can have, where you can view, or the homeowner, can view all of the selections that either need to be made or that have already been made. They're all in one place there. You can still use the selections the exact same way that you were doing before. You can add them on the proposals and the customer orders. You don't necessarily have to use this new selections tab. And in fact, you can even turn it off in the settings if If you just don't need to use it, you don't have to. Now, this is also where you're going to be able to manage and give the homeowner that access to see what the allowances are and then make selections, see how much is remaining. So it is a really neat update that also is part of that streamlined allowance workflow in here too. So, if you're using allowances, this will certainly be a tool that you'll want to reference, and we know that when you get a lot of allowances and you have a lot of selections that need to be made at different times, this will hopefully be kind of, again, that one central place that makes it easier for you to see what's been done and what hasn't been done, as well as for the homeowner, your customers, to keep track of where they're at and what selections they still need to make. We've also got, again, the write-in selections where you can collect the details, photos, links, quantities. Like, they can come in and they can essentially provide you all of that information. And depending on if you want to have the cost already determined, or if you want to leave it TBD, that will essentially determine what happens next after they submit those. But it's all right here. This also gives you the ability to share the selections with employees, with subs if you want. I will say that we are coming up here soon. Kind of one of the next things that we're going to be working on is a new generic non-budget document type that will essentially, I think, be the best way for you to share the scope of work or the selections with your subs, where you don't have to share any of the financial information with them. I think that's probably ultimately going to be, the best solution here. You can come in and download all of the proof selections into one PDF report there. But again, this is this new selections tab where it's got a lot of these different, features here to help manage the overall selections and allowances process. So how do these work? So, as you could before, you can essentially have selection groups. So when you create a group, whether it's in your catalog or in the budget, or now you could create it directly on the proposal, you're going to be able to set the minimum and the maximum number of selections that you want to be made. So if you don't want, they don't have to make any selections, then obviously you can just set the minimum to 0. If you want to force them to make a selection, the minimum might be 1 and the maximum would be 1, or you can leave it open-ended. But you're going to, just like how you could do before, you can create these selection groups that will have all of the selection options that can be made available to them. Now, if you don't have predetermined selections and you essentially just want to have those write-in options, you can add those to the selection groups as well. And those are the open-ended ones. Let them go find whatever they want and submit the details to you, and then you can essentially determine what that will cost. And so these selection groups and these write-ins, they can either be added to your original proposals, just like you could do before. Nothing's changed. It's all the same, where you can add them to proposals. Or you could now use the new selections documents, which are really, they're also customer orders, but you can add those selection groups, one, per document, or you could add, multiple per selection document, depending on how you want to do it. We'll get into some more of the details, but if you want to have different due dates, or if you wanted to have separate conversations about each selection, then you'd want to add them to separate selection documents. And then the third option here is essentially adding them to a selection document with an allowance. So, the allowance is going to be a line item in your budget, and you can essentially then tie that to a selection document. And so whenever they make their selections, it's going to show them, what their remaining allowance is, or if they've overrun it, they're going to see their overage. And so those are kind of the 3 ways that you can now manage and create these selections and make them available to the customers. So on these selection documents, these are, again, individual documents that can be used to collect your selection items. And so you can have one or multiple selection groups per selection document, just like you can with the proposals. The selection documents are essentially just another customer order document type and template, but it allows you, if you wanted to have kind of different terms and conditions, or, any sort of different customizations on what you show and hide, you can do that here on that document template. Again, we've gone ahead. If you didn't have a customer order document type, with selection or selections, or, whatever you might have called it, if you didn't have that already in your organization, then we went ahead and we created those new document types for you. So be sure to go in there and kind of look at all those default document settings that you might want to adjust, so that every time you create these, it's gonna take all of those settings there. But on these document selections, this is where you can, again, set the due date. You can use files, photos, videos. You can have one or multiple recipients with eSignatures. You can have the whole messaging back and forth, and you can link those allowance items. We had a lot of the infrastructure to facilitate this with our existing documents, set up. And so that's why we wanted to continue leveraging the documents in order to facilitate this, this selections and allowances ability here. And so that's kind of why these are, again, they're still customer orders. When they get approved, it updates the budget with the approved cost, the approved price. They're tracked just like documents. But the neat thing about them is on any document that has that selection option, that's what's going to trigger showing it up on the selections tab. So let's talk about allowances. What is an allowance? It's a predefined dollar amount that acts as a placeholder for items that are going to be selected at a later time. So this is going to allow you, to move forward and to get a contract signed before every single selection and every single decision has been made. It'll help you be able to show the customer what, the total for that job should be around. Obviously they should understand that if you overrun an allowance, and there will be additional costs for them. But this gives you that ability to move forward, a lot easier without having to make every single selection beforehand. Now, I know a lot of people, especially design build companies, there are a lot of you out there that, you do want to flush out every single selection before you move forward. Maybe you're selling them, a design agreement up front, or have some sort of design services, that you're going to do before you get into the full-blown contract. You can still do all that. This is more for when you want to essentially give them an allowance and then let them go and make selections later throughout the process of the job, so that they'll be able to keep track of where they're at and what the additional cost may be incurred. These are, again, mutually agreed upon between the customer and the contractor, and cost items, within your budget. Those are the ones that can be, set to now be allowance items, so that you can easily kind of keep track of which groups and which cost items are an allowance, and then those can be tied to the to the selection documents there. So I think we're going to hop into all of that. Oh, before we go there, so one other thing. So handling profits with allowances. So really there's kind of two primary use cases here that we've seen. So if you have a fixed profit, if you're going to essentially charge a set dollar amount, regardless how much they're going to pay for their selections, you can essentially have a zero margin or markup on your allowance items. So that means that you're going to take that profit and it's going to be distributed, across all the other line items in the job, or, maybe if you have a separate, line item for it, or if you have a labor line item, you can essentially collect that profit from another line item and leave the margin set to zero. And that, in that use case, like let's say, you've got a $10,000, appliances allowance, for the customer, you can collect your margin, on another item throughout that. And then when they see that allowance and they go and they, let's say they chose, $15,000 worth of appliances, then they're not going to be charged additional, profit for going over that allowance. A lot of you all said that's just kind of how you do it. There's really no incremental cost, for you to go, install one appliance versus the other. So you don't, basically charge them additional profit on top of, their selections like that. So that's how you can handle that use case. Now, for those of you who essentially you want to collect, profit on the overage, so whatever their selections are, whether it's under, whether it's over, you now have that option as well. So that's the use case where you would add the profit margin or markup directly to the allowance item. And then if they overrun that allowance, then right on the selection document, they're going to see an added fee at the bottom that's going to represent that additional profit. So if you had, if you're doing a cost plus, 15%, then if they overrun, whatever that incremental, overage is that they've, elected in their selection, there will be another, the 15% of that additional overage, that was outside of that allowance is going to show up as an added fee there at the bottom. We do suggest making sure that it's very clear in your contract, when you're doing that, so that they know to expect that if they choose more expensive, selections than what you've, allocated for them on your allowance, that there will be an additional fee for that. So those are the two ways that you can handle this. Again, every business, we found out kind of likes to do it a little bit differently. So, these are how you can do it within JobTread. If you have questions about this, again, I highly recommend hopping on with your customer success manager to talk through the scenarios, and we can help you kind of decide which is the best one for your business. So now let's dive into it here. All right. I'm going to hop over here to my my Big Ranch construction demo org. So we're just going to go, I'm going to go and we're going to go to this customer I created here. We're going to just do a new job, and this is going to be, my town hall demo. So we can, we'll just kind of skip past all these. Obviously, these are all those custom fields that, that you can customize for your company. But now we're going to come over here into the budget. So just like before, you don't have, everything can be just the same way as it was. If you want to come in here, and we wanted to just, let's say add our appliances package selections here. So we've got our selections. This is a selection group. You can tell by how it's notated right there. So you can add your selections in here, make any changes if you want. And, just like before, just new document, we'll just say this is our proposal, it's going to select all these line items there. And then this is just like it was before, right? You can allow the customers to make their selections directly on the document here. This is where, again, though, you got some additional options, right here. If you didn't want to show the line items, the line item photos, you don't have to. If you didn't want to show the quantity in units, you don't have to. If you didn't want the totals there, you don't have to have those, and it's just going to show up at the bottom. So all of that is directly editable right here on the document. You've got the ability, if for those of you who are doing cost plus, you can come in here, and this is where you can enable that cost plus the fee, where this is now all of the cost, and then your margin was taken out and shown right here. You got your subtotal, your tax, all of your tax settings right here. Most of the time, almost, you really shouldn't ever need to set these, but if you did want to choose a different tax rate from your QuickBooks, you can do that. If you needed to kind of adjust any of that, that's all right there. I'll also say, we saw Mark's poll that he did in JobTread Pros asking if we could hide the tax. We're certainly going to give you the option now to hide that from the if you're not collecting tax ever, then yeah, we're going to enable that. And again, that'll further kind of simplify this here. But just like before, when your customers come in and they make their selections, it's going to essentially update that group total as well as the total at the bottom. All of their built-in homeowner financing will update as well. So they can come in just like they could before and make all those selections there, based on that. And so, I think that's, again, you got the top level, obviously on a selection document, you're going to want to always show all the selections. This is where if you did want to set the allowance, we could do that there. Just kind of looking at what our options are. So, like I was saying earlier, if I want to come in here and add the recipient ahead of time, so let's say we're going to add Deja here, we're going to require a signature. So I'm not notifying her, I'm not giving her access right now. I'm just setting this up. You can see here now it says no access, but the signature is going to be required. So I can go ahead and set this up, not have to give them access right away, which is, just again, another little perk of this update that you can see all that. So we'll say, we'll go ahead and send this to the customer. Again, I got the option to customize that message, or if I had that, already set in the template, you could do that. If I wanted to add an additional recipient as well, I could do that right here. So maybe I'll add that additional, person there. Maybe I don't want to require signature. I just want the primary contact to sign. However you want to do it, you can do all that. And this is going to essentially send them that email at this point. And now they've been given access. So you can see that since I didn't require signature, I'm just a reviewer versus, this is a signature is required. So this has all now been sent out over in the selections tab. Because we had a selection group on here, we're going to be able to see that this has now been, populated here. It's showing up. If I would have given this a custom name, a custom subject, this could have been, this is, maybe it's my original, proposal or contract or whatever, you want to have here. You can basically have that, and that's gonna be what will show up there. So if you wanted to have multiple selection groups, you can do that right here as well. Again, these aren't required. It's up to you if you want to use the selections tab or not. But you can still, again, it's a document just like before. Just to show you again though, real quick. So let's say we wanted to, we either want to make changes now, or maybe we want to decline this. I can actually come over here, and this is where I now have the option to essentially remove that access so that they're not going to get notified about it. So if no one has access, no email is going to be sent. But, if I did want to keep them on there, but not send the email, I've now got the option to do that. I'll just kind of show you here. So this is essentially going to remove their access. So I've now declined that document. This went back to no access. So again, just helps you understand they cannot see this document anymore. If we preview them in the portal, they're not going to see this information. So it's just another neat little thing there. And then you can come in here and you can make changes. So we can take that back into into a draft state that'll allow you to make changes there. I'm going to go ahead and just delete this one though. We're going to come back over here. So let's say now we're just we'll just kind of remove all of this, or I can just leave it there. But let's say we want to come in and we're going to add our allowances. So I think I've got an appliance allowance option here. So this is now a cost item with the with the allowance item. So you can see it's got the dollar sign. When we come and we show the details here, you can see we've now set that as an allowance item. So in the catalog, I suggest that you update all of your allowance line items to already have this set so that when they get brought into the budget, they're going to be made available there. So on this example, I guess we're essentially we have zero margin on this one. You can see this is also where you can set the write-in options here. One other thing though that I did want to make you guys aware of, again, you don't have to have these in the budget to be able to create and add these to documents. Now that's where, again, we can come in and we can create a new document, and it's going to allow us to add that directly to to it. The cool thing though, that when you add an allowance to your budget, that's going to automatically show up. It's going to basically create a group here where it's going to, this is where all of the documents related to this allowance can be easily created. And so as they make selections, it'll go against that, and now since, you might have some that aren't tied to an allowance, maybe they're just optional upgrades, that's where you can now come in here. And those are just going to be kind of other selections that aren't tied to the allowances. If you don't have any allowances in your budget, you won't see any notion of allowances in here. It's very flexible how you want to do it there. But let's just say, and one thing I'll point out too, that this allowance is, this is showing the approved price, the approved cost for that allowance there. So, here, this hadn't been approved yet. So, I'm going to send this, I'm going to add it to, maybe this is, some sort of a, proposal, document, contract, whatever you want to call it, design agreement. We're going to go ahead and add that, and we're going to mark it as approved at this point. So, I can basically just, send it to the customer. If I want to, have them sign it, I can, or I can just, basically let them have access to it. So they're just a reviewer, but I'll go ahead and I'm just going to approve it on their behalf. So, customer, approved. And, again, if I want to notify them or not, you now have the option every time you make those updates, whether you want to send those options, those emails or not. Before you didn't have that option, so now you do. And so once this has now been, essentially been approved, we now have in our budget, we've got our approved, budget for that. And we've got our approved price. So in this case, they're basically the same. But over in the selections now, we're going to see that we have a $12,000, allowance that's been added here. So, at this point I can come in and we're going to create a new, let's say, maybe whether we want to pull from our budget or if we want to, add a new group, you now have the option. I could create a brand new group right here on the fly, or I could pull from my catalog or my budget, so in my budget, I already had this appliances package there. So I'll go ahead and just add that, I'm going to say, this is my, my appliances, selection. And, if I want to set, maybe a different due date for this one, I could do that. If I wanted to attach any files, photos, whatever it may be, I can directly create that. And so you'll see it's automatically tied to the allowance, because I created it right here from that group, and so, you're going to easily see what's in draft. Once I send that to the customer, again, I suggest you require the signature. It's, it's up to you, but they're going to be able to, sign off on those. They're going to see, when the due date is, the status, that's essentially going to allow them, to come in and kind of see where they're at. And so as they're making their selections, they're going to see where, kind of where they're at in regards to, the allowance there. Maybe I want to come in and let's add, I think I have an appliances, upgrade option here, upgrades. This one wasn't necessarily in my budget, so I'll just add it from my catalog. I think I've got this upgrade options here. So, I'm giving them, option for a range hood, a trash compactor, wine fridge, whatever, and then they got a write-in as well. So, these write-ins are really neat because you can essentially populate, and kind of give them some guidance, and then they can just directly submit that to you. So, go ahead and we'll just create that one there, and so here we can see we're starting to build this out. We'll just go ahead and send that as well. But once they come in and they start making their selections, this is where, you can see that we've got, kind of they're going to see exactly what their costs are right here. And so, let's say we're going to go with this $8,000 one. So essentially their selections cost is $8,000. We're going to deduct that $8,000 from their allowance. And so that's essentially when, when I save this, and I'm just going to go ahead and approve it as if I was the customer. So we'll just approve. Actually, it's going to want me to, I didn't turn on the signature. So I'm just going to go ahead and approve it. And so now you can see that, $8,000 of the $12,005 has been selected. So they've got another $4,500 of optional, selections that they can do if they want to use that, the rest of that allowance. If they don't use up all of the allowance, you have the flexibility to decide if you want to, use a change order to allocate that to another allowance, or if you want to give them credit back for that, or if you, sometimes it's a use it or lose it. You've got all of those options right here to be able to do that. And then back over in the budget, now we're going to see that essentially on our allowance, your budget for that has been decreased by the $8,000. So there's essentially no, it just kind of took it down, and then it added it right here on that line item that was selected. Now, again, if we didn't, let's say we go back over to this, this appliances upgrade where none of these are in the budget right now, and maybe they come in and, they're going to select, these three things, this is where they can now, again, they're going to see that they've got, another $2,500. So maybe now we're, another 3,300. So I guess I'm still going to be under, but, I can review and I can, approve this. So we'll just go ahead and approve it. And let's see here. So we'll close that. And now back over in the budget, we're going to see that appliances upgrades, all of the things that were selected were now added to the budget. So like all of the things like in this first situation, since I already had those, like these weren't selected. So I don't necessarily want these in the budget. And, it's just a little bit harder, to have to go through and clean up and remove the things that weren't selected. So this is a nice little streamlined flow that will automatically add it there. Let's see here. So again, we're keeping track of all that there. If you have just additional, like, let's say we're going to come in here, maybe we need to, let's do our paint choices. I suggest you have this already set up in the catalog, so I can come over here. I could say, here's, all my paint selections. So this has already been set up. It's going to give them some guidance on where, they can look, they can make their choices. We've essentially said, hey, tell us the name, whatever code, the link, like whatever information, this is just populated in that description. If I wanted to create, a new item right now on the fly, I could do that as well. And I could just build that out and say, again, this is going to be a write-in. And if there's going to be no incremental cost, then I can just basically have that off, and there won't be any additional cost for them to make this write-in. It'll automatically go to approved once they do that, or if it's going to depend on, whatever they select, then this will essentially keep it as TBD, so you can now create these on the fly as you need. Again, just makes it a little bit easier to have that already pre-set up. So again, we can now send this off and collect those from the customer. Now, we got great feedback when we were building this out that, hey, look, I'm a home builder. I might have 20 selections and allowances groups that we need created. So what we recommend, again, in that situation, you're going to likely want to have that already set up. So you could basically have, I think we have one of our groups here. So this is like all of our, let me see. So I think all of our kitchen allowances are all, right here in this one group, right? Maybe since we already have the appliance allowances, I don't need that one, so you can remove some if you don't need them. But the neat thing about it, when you do this, and again, I'll go ahead and we'll just, add this and approve it. This is going to go ahead and essentially stub out the, so this is going to, basically stub out the allowances selection over there. So, I can just approve it here if I want. Signature required. So let's, we don't need to require the signature. Now, the reality is I forgot to add the recipient. So, maybe I'll do that. So we'll add them there, so now I can basically, approve it. And so that's now going to show up now in their in their selections tab. So they've got all those allowances there. So if you want to essentially do this in mass, again, if you already have selection templates set up in your catalog, this is where you can use this import from catalog. And so, and I guess we got a little video here that shows you how to do the mass import, but I can just come in here and I can say, I'm going to use, these are, let's see, I think I had all my kitchen selections right here. And so this is going to basically pull in all of the different groups that I had set up. I can now decide, which allowance I want to tie that to. So, this is going to be my appliance allowance, got same thing in my appliance. I can, so maybe my plumbing here, my flooring one's going to come out of this flooring allowance. My lighting selection is, we'll just take that out of the electrical. I've got my countertop. So, so I'm going through and I'm basically in one swoop, I'm going to be able to create, so this is the kitchen one, doesn't need any allowance. So we'll just not tie that to an allowance, and so that allows me to come through, and again, maybe I can, I pick my due dates and whenever I want these, to be created, if you want to have different due dates, maybe we'll have some over here in April, you can go through and essentially make any of these updates, right here. And so like, if you wanted to, you could also add these to the exact same group right here. So if I were to come over and say, let's see here, so maybe like on this appliances one, I actually just want this, the document to be called the appliances, selections, 2, because I think I already have one in there. So, I could essentially name that appliances selections 2. This is going to combine both of these selection groups onto this one document, or again, maybe I don't need to include that because I've already got it. I can just turn off any of those groups. It's not going to select them. Maybe on this one, I want this to be my paint choices, even though, I already had that. So I'll just, paint choices 2 or whatever, that's going to combine these all into one document. And then if I want to go ahead and, automatically add the recipient there, so that's already there. If I wanted to also, add that additional recipient, I can do that here. We're defaulting to that selection document template. If you wanted to change it, you could. It's up to you. So all of this is just going to really streamline the process. And when I hit create, this is essentially going to go through and it's going to create the selection documents within each one of these allowance groups. So it's just, really streamlining that process there when you set up your templates. You can see here that, I did that paint choices too. This is going to have both, my trim options there. And then, I guess I just had the one in that other option, but like, you can see all of that is going to create these documents automatically. And then, we're letting you kind of go through and review, probably ought to have the option to also mass, send them all out. But, we'll give you that, so looks like I probably had the, that was in the past. So obviously probably need to make sure that doesn't allow you to do that. But, so now you can go through and you can essentially send those off to the customer and, they'll be able to then see all this and make their selection. So I think I'm running up against the top of the hour here. There's a lot more that, again, we want to help you guys kind of learn how to use the ins and the outs of this. We've got trainings that are going to be, dedicated. Anna's got, trainings already scheduled for these features that you can essentially kind of go through and look through there. But I did want to share kind of what's on the horizon here real quick. So, the most immediate horizon, what we've got coming up is we're going to essentially create a way where you can preview a document directly from the budget or from the catalog, so when you're creating those catalog, cost group templates there, right now you got to go and add it to a job and then add it to a document to preview it. Coming up here very shortly, you're going to be able to directly preview what would that group or what would that template look like on a document. Same thing from the budget so that you don't have to create the documents anymore. We're going to give you the option, just click preview and it'll like show you, and you'll be able to choose which document type you want to preview it as, but you'll be able to have that preview option. I think that's going to really help, as you're building out your templates to really get a good feel for what is that going to look like on the document. I know some people, if you're like me, every, little cliffhangers and the descriptions and things are, can get to you. So now you'll be able to quickly view that. I mentioned earlier, we're going to add an additional document type where we're struggling with what to call it exactly, because it's, we want to make it as intuitive as possible, but it's just like a generic, non-budget related document type. So, right now, all of those document types, whenever you approve them, those are making some sort of an adjustment to the budget. Those are approving line items or changing line items or, and so we're going to essentially, the way we think the best way to share all the specifications of the scope of work, with an employer, with a subcontractor, without having to share any financials whatsoever, no total, no amount. You can share, if you want to share the dollars and the quantities and the units and all that, you can, or you could just completely remove all that. Or if it's just, let's just say it's just some sort of generic contract, maybe it's we're basically signing off on the project is completed and you don't need to add any line items whatsoever. I mean, you can do that now, but it's still tied to that customer, order or that vendor order or a particular, document type, versus this is going to be a great generic document type where you can take all your specifications, all your selections, whatever information you want to share with any external users, or with your customers, like, whatever it is, you're going to have that option to create these non-financial, non-budget related documents. So, it's something that we've heard a lot of requests for, and we're excited to now finally, now that we've gotten this update out, that's pretty much, coming here very soon. Custom fields in the budget views. It's been a huge ask. We know that it's going to be a great way for you to manage the order status, the kind of model numbers, being able to just directly click and edit right there in the budget to edit those custom fields. Right now you have to click to open up the side panel where it has all the additional custom fields, on a cost item. And so, we've been wanting to get to this. It's finally here, at the top of this list. So, in the next, couple of weeks, you should be able to see that directly in the budget. Really excited to have that. Another huge ask, the task custom views, so that you can save, from the main top level, if you wanted to always see a particular, the Gantt chart view, or the, maybe you want to see, everyone's, upcoming task and scheduled task or not, like, you'll be able to now create those custom views just like you can in the documents, in the jobs, in the customers, in the vendors. You're going to now have that ability directly right there in the task and schedule. And we're also going to be pushing out that task offset, or slack time, however you want to call it, but it'll essentially allow you to lock, the time between, but either before or after a task, so that when you're shifting your budget, it can maintain that offset between the two tasks. And then, the next thing here, dimensions, formulas, assemblies, that's finally, we're about to get to that after we get a couple of these other things. But again, it's going to be a huge update where we're going to be able to allow you to just input, those custom parameters, whether it's the length and the width, or, the depth, or whatever it may be. You'll be able to have custom parameters, set either, at the cost group or at the job level, and you can set those formulas to calculate the cost item quantities, or the unit cost, the unit price, based on the different dimensions. So super excited for that. I've been waiting on that one for a long time. Really excited to get that one out there here in the next couple months. And then we are in the process right now of adding support for vendor credits and, credit memos. Right now, with a little bit of weird, you can't create negative bills in QuickBooks, or negative invoices. And so, they do consider them these separate document types over there. And so, we're having to do some additional, work to be able to support those. But soon, hopefully, here in the next, few weeks, we'll be able to have that out there. So, I wanted to kind of share the most immediate, in the next, couple months, these are going to be the top of the list. These are all sort of related to, or most of these are related to the things that we've just worked on. So we want to go ahead and knock these out, and then after this, we're going to be moving to focus on, the communications, notifications. I know, a lot of feature requests for those. So got those coming up here shortly after that. But, just wanted to share, so that you guys can have an idea, and the things that, we're looking for, any additional feedback, like go find these items in the help desk feature request, upvote them, and share kind of any use cases or ways that this will benefit you, to make sure that when we're developing it, we're taking into account all of that feedback. It's very helpful for us. And, lastly here, so again, within the help desk, the what's new, this is a great way to keep up with all of the updates, everything that's coming out. We try to always put out videos, announcements here. You'll see the little red dot in the top of your screen when we roll things out. And on this actually, the documents upgrade and the selections, you might notice for the first time ever, we now have videos directly in the app, so that you can learn it right when you get there, if you can always dismiss it and find those videos in the help desk later, but that was kind of a new little update we also put in there. So we're gonna continue to work to add more helpful videos and training directly in the app, so that you don't have to open up the help panel and see it on the help desk. Obviously it's always going to be there as well, but yeah, this is a great place to keep up with all those updates. And lastly, I just want to continue to encourage you, to go and look at all of the live trainings that are available, or you can watch them, the on-demand recordings that are also in the app. We do have a new JobTread 201. This is our first, more advanced, course that Anna's putting on with selections and allowances. So you'll be able to see that. Going to have a bunch of those in the next coming days and weeks. So definitely get in the help desk and go look for all that. And yeah, I want to thank everyone for attending. I know I ran through a lot. Again, leverage those trainings, leverage those customer success office hours. And we appreciate your continued support for JobTread. I hope you're excited about these updates. And yeah, I think we'll hang around for a little bit here to answer some questions.
All right, fantastic. Thanks so much, Eric. So one piece that maybe, Eric, we didn't mention is one of our new partnerships with our Tradition Accounting group. Do you want to maybe talk about that real quick? Because I know that that's going to be added to the app pretty soon.
Yeah, absolutely. So Christine from Tradition Accounting, she was she was at JobTread Connect, did an awesome job presenting. We're going to be adding her as another resource for you. If you need to kind of get someone to help you get your QuickBooks cleaned up, get it set up, for and get it integrated to JobTread, she's going to be a great resource, for you to bring them in and just, again, she's not necessarily going to be your ongoing bookkeeper, but if you need somebody who is an expert in accounting, she's another great resource that we're going to be adding to our marketplace. So you'll be able to schedule an appointment with her directly from there here in the next week or so.
Great, perfect. Also, Eric, just one more question that came in that I wasn't able to, well, I figured would be good for you to answer, is if people are not using allowances currently and maybe haven't even considered selections much, and they're trying to figure out what route to go with the new selections tool, what advice would you maybe give them as they're trying to decide, do I use allowances? Do I not? Do I include it in a proposal? Do I do selection documents? How do I decide what would be best for me?
Sure. I mean, I think it really kind of depends on, your sales strategy, right? And how you're looking to present, your proposals. And if there are going to be decisions that, that you think the homeowner is going to struggle to make, whether it's red or blue, it really doesn't matter. Or if it's like, something that, again, it can be deferred till later, but you want to get the deal done. You want to get them locked in to, to sign up and to agree to work with you. Then that's where I think that those allowances are a great way to just put placeholders in, so that the customer still feels confident, that they know what this job is going to cost them, and they know that they can come back in and make those selections later. I think that's when it can be a really great sales tool, to do in there. Now, some people, again, I think it's also, with selections, directly in your proposal, I think that's a great way to upsell your customers without having to be extremely pushy. You can basically give them those additional options that they might not have ever even thought about. You might not have brought up in the sales process. We see that those have been a great tool to upsell and increase your job size, based on just giving them those selection abilities. And again, it also lets the customer have more control over their budget. And so they can control what selections they make. So if they want, all the premium, highest, most expensive selections, and obviously their job's going to be more expensive. But if they're, want to, kind of make some sacrifices and go with some lower end stuff, to fit within their budget, we think that this interactive selections ability is a great tool to use to help the customers think through how much are they willing to spend. And instead of haggling you on price and trying to get discounts, this gives them the option to decide what they might want to cut back on, without having to, kind of just, go back to you on price. It's a really neat tool. So, you really do need to think through the scenarios. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be one size fits all either. On some customers, you might use it one way. On others, you might do it a different way. I know a lot of people want to have every single selection figured out before they go into the contracting phase. So, again, it's really kind of what works best for your business and, how you feel the most comfortable in being able to kind of get your customers to sign on the dotted line.
Yeah, I completely agree. And also to think about, maybe just starting with one selection to begin with, see how that feels for you and how that fits within your business processes. And then you can go from there and build on. So don't get overwhelmed by this. It's very simple to just start with one, maybe have a couple selections within one selection group, add it to that initial proposal, see how your customers respond to it. It's really easy also to throw in maybe an upgrade that, so it really like the entire job isn't focusing on that one selection, but maybe they just want to add something, start there, and then you can build off of that and make it a really robust tool for you.
Yep.
Great. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. It looks like, well, we might have one more question. Let me double check in here. Okay, so yeah, there is a question that did come in about maybe the difference between QuickBooks Online and QuickBooks Desktop. They maybe have heard that QuickBooks Desktop is maybe going to be phased out, but I don't know if that's quite true. But Eric, what are your thoughts?
Yeah,
QuickBooks
I
Desktop
can
versus
share.
Online.
Yeah, I can share, and I did share on a JobTread Pros discussion that we're having. So I can tell you straight from the horse's mouth. Intuit has told me that they are essentially trying to 100% phase out support for QuickBooks Desktop. They've stopped selling it in the UK and other countries entirely. Here in the US, the only version that they do still sell, which they've told me they've made it intentionally as difficult as possible for people to find it and purchase it on their website, is the enterprise version. But they've confirmed to us that their goal is by 2025 to not continue supporting the enterprise edition there. They've essentially have said over the last 2 years, they have made tremendous strides in updating and bringing in a lot of that missing functionality, if you will. That I know a lot of people say that they love QuickBooks Desktop and that QuickBooks Online can't do all of that. In the last 2 years, they've made a bunch of updates that, according to them, say that they're really closing that gap and hope over the next couple of years they'll be able to have it fully closed. But they've told us like they're not going to be making any additional updates like to the web connector, and that's how we integrate and we're able to communicate with QuickBooks Desktop is through that web connector. So it's extremely important, but they haven't made updates to that in a long time, and they're not going to. They've essentially encouraged us to not continue enhancing the integration anymore and to really focus all of our efforts on QuickBooks Online, where they've got their APIs and they're continuing to add out additional features and functions. So it is something to be mindful of. If you're trying to decide which version to go with, definitely, QBO is the way that you're going to want to be. If you're already on desktop, then, it's just something to think about. I've heard, from a lot of, existing, QuickBooks Desktop, solution providers and implementation partners that, they're not necessarily hearing that. They're hearing kind of mixed, signals and feedback. Again, QuickBooks has identified us as, an extremely rapidly growing, integration for them, where we've got, hundreds and hundreds of our customers are now integrating with QuickBooks Online and Desktop. And so, they reached out to us. They're, basically bringing us into their QuickBooks Solutions program. They want us to make sure that we, inform everyone, for you all to know that if you are in QuickBooks Desktop, there are resources that they're going to provide to help you migrate, and get fully trained, get all your data over to QuickBooks Online. So that is something that's available there. And they brought all their developers on. I had a huge call, a bunch of the Intuit developers about what feedback we have and how they can continue to improve QuickBooks Online. And so, it's been really great for us to be able to share our feedback, like not having the full support to use QuickBooks projects, and something they're looking at that and saying, okay, yeah, that's something that we can potentially get you an update and get you access for. And so, I think it is going to be, ultimately, online, the cloud-based software with APIs and the ability to communicate, and I'm sure a lot of you have already noticed there's a ton more features with our QuickBooks Online integration than there are the QuickBooks Desktop integration, just because of how difficult it is to integrate and support the QuickBooks Desktop. We just don't have access to all of the logs and the information, and all the updates are it's just a lot harder to do. And so I think less than 10% of our customers right now are using QuickBooks Desktop. So if you are interested in in exploring making that switch, I'm happy to put you in touch with some of the people over at QuickBooks Online. again, they're not going to force you to switch over. I think, I heard from someone yesterday that they are starting to pull away certain features from the QuickBooks desktop, which, obviously not ideal for them, but their focus is on QuickBooks Online. And, it's something that I just wanted to share to make sure that you guys are in the know.
Thank you so much, Eric, for sharing that with us. It's extremely helpful, hopefully, for some of you as you're thinking about your sustainable organization and moving forward. So yes, if you have any additional questions about what was discussed today, we would love to continue the conversation. Simply schedule a demo if you aren't yet part of the JobTread family. But if you are, go ahead and just contact your customer success manager by visiting the help desk in your account. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you on future live demos and trainings.